Good evening, everybody. Thank you for attending. This is a regular meeting of the Conservation Commission on March 16th, 2023, commencing at 7:37 p.m. We do have one member of the public here tonight. Did you come to make comment? No? Okay, that's fine, and I didn't receive anything by mail, so that we will move on to just a couple comments that I had. One was on the FOI workshop that's coming up. I think there was a reminder that went out today, and I hope you'll all make every effort to attend that.
What's the date of it?
That's on the 21st at 5 p.m. A little early, I know, perhaps. But Tom, his last name is Hennick. He's usually has some rather interesting anecdotes about FOI and how people, towns have run afoul of it. So worth listening to and good information. The April meeting, just as a heads up, there's a fair chance, 50-50 chance perhaps, that I'll be on a trip and may want to do that meeting as a remote meeting for everyone. Just, if I'm not able to get back on time. So that'll be clearer as I go into April. And you'll see that in the material I send out. Just give you a heads up as to the reason why it may come across as a virtual meeting. Good evening.
We've got everybody. Hello.
May I steal a piece of paper?
As you know, we have Andy Danzig coming tonight, and so I have deferred the further discussion on properties worthy of preservation, and we'll work on that list that we had been doing. And so we'll pick that up again the next meeting or the meeting after. If it's virtual, that might be a little tougher. So we'll see how that rolls out. And then finally with Andy,
He's away.
I just wanted to preface the Andy's visit, or previewed, I guess is a better word. Andy, I hope is going to talk about the Second Sunday effort and what's been done in terms of the stewardship of some of the open space and the access to open space that group's been working on. I think there's because that group has worked on trail access, they're ready for some signage, and so we have the money in our budget for the signage, but wanted.
So what happened with our budget? I was going to ask that. Did everything get approved that we requested or not?
I actually, thank you. I'm seeing a yes from Diana.
Right? Yeah.
Is it all approved? I really haven't seen any of the results yet, or
Okay.
haven't been
Would be
in
good
touch
to
with
know, 'cause
anyone
one
to
of the-
ask what's happened. I do have a meeting with Tony Genovese next week, and so coincidentally,
One
I
of
find
the
out from him.
selectmen suggested that we move the signage from our budget to somebody else's budget, which didn't make any sense at all. It's not like saving the town money.
No.
It's just moving it from
What
one
has to do
place.
with what our responsibilities are, I think.
No, it was just not a well thought out comment,
What
honestly.
was it? Just the maintenance department here, because they would probably do it.
Public Works or
Public
something,
Works.
yeah.
Yeah, it was like, so it wasn't like it was going to save any money. It was just like
But
it
they
was going to
have
move
the
it.
technology to know who to call and what to do. I mean,
Yeah.
they'll have to go to them anyway to
Yeah.
figure out what to do.
Yeah,
So
and
maybe we
in
can
fact,
work with them.
Andy and I are slated to get together with Adam Parsons to talk about the installation of the signage and making sure, because we had an assumption that they would do it for
Yeah,
us.
they
'cause
probably already
it'll be
have
on-
a contract for services for that for the town anyway.
Yeah, I don't, yeah,
But as
it's
long as
simple
the-
stuff, I didn't know if they'd do it
As long as
themselves.
the dollars that were earmarked for the
Right.
signage that we wanted to do is going to go to the signage that we
I'll-
wanted to do as opposed
I'll
to
ask Tony.
something else.
Where's,
As long as the money is going towards what it needs to go.
Yeah.
Exactly. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
I mean, our
No.
comment during the budget meeting was, if they're willing to do it, I mean, we don't care, but, you know, we just want to make
Yeah.
sure it gets done.
Yeah, what they don't know is what you know, we would have to, the town's trail group, I guess, would have to work with them, Andy, to tell them how much dollars to put in there. And currently, I'm just getting that information and I know, because I'm with that group too, how far along they are in being ready for signs, so.
Okay.
But we're gonna ask Andy about that, and then, there's a third item, that we'll talk about in detail, when we get to item number 9 in the agenda, the budget expenditures. Because of, we're not doing 2 programs we plan to do this year, we will have money left over, if you will, in the budget. And
To
so,
reallocate to something.
yeah, and one thing we could reallocate it to is, as Andy's led this work, the numbers of people volunteering are going up. And so, and he really doesn't have any tools to carry out he inherited, I have an inventory, he'd probably talk
Are you
about it,
talking
but
about Andy?
Andy Danzig.
Yeah.
So, I think there's a need.
Andy might be able to go to nights or something and get publicity and get some donated too.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he might be able to, but
I think one of the issues you were talking about that we weren't gonna have, we don't need to pay for it, is that about the jumping worm program?
right, it's suspended right now, and we can talk about that when we get to that.
Uh-huh.
But if we, I'm talking about budget that will run out at the end of May. We
Oh.
have
Yeah,
new,
so
we have
we have
new
to-
budget
How
coming
much?
up, starting June 30, I got the month wrong.
July
So,
1st.
yeah, so July 1st, so the end of
How much do we have in
June.
the budget right now that could be expended?
Excuse me?
How much is in the budget now that we can use in one way or another?
Slightly over 1,000.
And if we don't use it, does it get added to next year's?
No, it goes
No.
into back
Okay.
to the general fund.
Yeah.
All right, so that's a good
So,
thing. We could use.
so we can talk, we'll talk more about that as we get to the end.
Yeah, I know, I was curious about that because I thought we had allocated certain dollars for like boot brushes, wasn't that part of the whole jumping worm?
Well, it all gets lumped into a category called equipment.
Okay, sure.
So there's, equipment is equipment. So whether it's a brush cutter or a boot brush, it's equipment. So we can fairly expend that money. There is a small amount of money in another category that I'm gonna ask, depending on how the conversation goes tonight, would ask about transferring over
Yeah, we should-
between
yeah.
funds. Yeah.
That would make sense.
We should just confirm that what we had requested was approved, or find out exactly
Yeah.
what was approved.
Yeah, again, that's for
From
next year.
last year's budget.
I'm talking about
Between,
our current budget we're
right,
gonna have
between now
left over.
and
Between
June
now and
1st.
the end of,
No, June,
And
June.
June 30th.
oh, June
30th.
30th, okay.
yeah,
Whatever we
excuse
have
me, I
left
said
in-
May 30th before it was June 30th.
Whatever we have left in our budget for right now is through the end of the fiscal year.
Yeah,
But now, we would have had a budget, a draft budget, or a proposed budget for next fiscal year.
right.
Has that already, that
That's-
must already be
That's
under.
been submitted, I believe.
It has gone to the Board of Selectmen, it's gone to the Board of Finance. I truly don't know exactly where that stands. I just,
Yeah.
I
I-
don't think any of them have been approved.
in general,
No, no, no.
Oh, it
right.
hasn't been
No.
approved,
Okay.
no,
Right.
I don't
definitely.
think
Right.
we had that last
Right.
meeting to say, we
but,
approve of
yeah.
building, you guys, anybody.
Well, I mean, it has to go to the town meeting, right?
And the
first?
town has to approve it
Yeah.
after that.
Yeah, Finance just met
Oh,
tonight.
okay, that's right.
But sorry, at the last meeting, it was discussed about the committee's budget. Did the commission look at our budget for next year? What the
At the
We
last
did, yeah.
meeting?
Yeah,
We
No,
did it
no, we
a few
did it
meetings ago.
A few meetings ago,
a few meetings ago, okay.
yeah. They've been due a long time. The Finance Committee met tonight, and because I was eating my dinner to try to get here, I didn't peek in, so I really don't know what they've done.
Yeah, so they won't.
But I'll try to, I'll find out from Tony when I meet with him next week.
You'll send us an email maybe?
Yeah.
Great.
So the process is.
I mean, I
the-
can talk to others, Karen Crosby will tell me.
So we'll
too.
know that it's final once after the town meeting?
Town meeting is when it's finalized.
Okay, okay.
Well, so I think they might be moving things around, or, I don't know. They may have approved everything that we put in.
Right. Okay, so, and with that, anything else before we move
Do
on?
you know when the town meeting is?
Pardon?
It is,
When the town meeting is?
I saw it today.
It's in June,
It's in
right?
June. There's another meeting there's a preliminary budget meeting in May,
Okay, yeah.
and that's almost, well, I don't want to say it's more important, but it's where the public gives feedback, and so
Sure.
that's the last time it'll probably change. The town meeting is really up or down.
That's in April?
It's in April,
Yeah.
and then they vote in May.
Okay,
So April's the preliminary meeting where people kind of can get feisty and have their last and final say, and then it's voted on in May.
thank you. All right, we'll move on to the minutes. There are 3 sets of minutes I hope you've all reviewed. And so I hope we could, unless there's any noted changes needed, I'm hoping we can approve this by unanimous consent. Anybody have any issues?
I'll just make one suggestion in the minutes. I think they're good, but I think there are certain issues that we should make sure we flag, that we want to make sure get explained in the minutes, so that we have something to look back at in the future. We want to figure out what we discussed. We should make the point to say, please include this in the minutes, or please include this element in the minutes.
Paul, I'm going to ask you to hold that thought.
Okay.
And if you are able to make the Tom Hennick meeting, the FOI meeting,
Mhm.
or if you can't, maybe you can send in a question and ask him to comment on minutes and what they should be like, what the content should be. Because I'd be interested in his comments on it. There's one school of thought that says the minutes should reflect what's done, not necessarily about what's said. Because once you start writing down a lot about what's said, then you get into people's memories about what's been said, and there you have some issues. And he, I think, can talk to that. So
Right.
I'm going to suggest we take that into consideration before we ask Kathy to, document in a lot of detail. To me,
I don't mean to
these
like
days
tremendous detail, just make sure that we cover what our thoughts were on it.
Okay.
I think I'm willing to hear what Tom Hennick says, but I kind of was thinking similarly that I need a few more cues to tweak my memory as to what we said so that I can be more effective in the next meeting, sort of using that as a jumping off spot. So
I don't think a lot of tweaks to it, but just a few things that were, highlights that we talked about maybe.
Okay.
I don't think we're under great scrutiny here.
And I think minutes can be done either way. I mean,
Yeah.
there is no rule that minutes need to be done very concisely. Coming from a historic point of view, the more that are in the minutes, the more you can find out in 50 years. What happened and why.
Good point.
And there are times where it's maddening that there is no
Okay.
information.
Let's hear what Tom has to say, and then maybe you can look at, next time, bring a couple sample minutes and say tell Kathy where it could be expanded, where you'd like, some examples probably would help if we're
Sure.
short in some
It
places.
shouldn't be lost on us that we really appreciate that Kathy's here.
Yes, I was gonna say, we're just happy that Kathy's doing it, not us.
We're not complaining.
Yeah. Okay.
We're very appreciative.
Mhm. Okay. Well, with that, I'll make the motion that we adopt the minutes as presented. That would need a second,
Second?
Second, or,
and if there's,
This is all three.
that's all three, because if we don't have any changes, and there's nobody that is gonna, feels otherwise, the motion is passed. Okay, so they're adopted. So, Gather New Haven. Gather New Haven are building out the trails that are on the New Haven side of the Wilbur Cross Parkway. They have done a nice job with trails coming through New Haven and up to the point of the preserve there. And they want to now make that just as nice, put the signage, put benches. I don't know how much you looked through the proposal.
Yeah.
They had maps and so forth. That eventually can hook up under the Wilbur Cross to the piece of open space that came out of the 10 and 14 Merritt Avenue development. They've said they would work with us as they put together their final plan. They asked the day before, the grant was due, for a letter of support, and I told them I couldn't quite do that, that I needed to bring it back to the commission. They asked if we would give them the letter anyway, as if it was before, so they can add it to the letters, and you saw, I think the letters are all in the back end. I included the sample letter, right, that they wrote,
Yeah.
so that's pretty much what I'd send in unless somebody sees something that needs to be changed in that.
so my thought of that is it was really pertaining to New Haven. I know it's part of the West River area, and it's not like it's identifying open space as part of the West River area. But it seemed like it was kind of, at least to me, it seemed like it was kind of out of our purview. We talked about the benefits that would be to housing complex and the motel and so forth. And it just struck me as like something that we shouldn't be even spending 1 second of time on, since we have so many things in Woodbridge we could be focusing on. It's kind of my impression was it was out of our purview.
I think they were just looking for strength in numbers. And we're on the border of it.
I would say that I'd say if it had an impact on Woodbridge, I'd be interested in spending time on it, but it's downstream of Woodbridge. It's not even upstream of Woodbridge where it's gonna have an impact.
Just go up.
Well,
spawn.
proximity to open space, has an
You know-
impact on,
Yep.
property value.
I think if it just takes us saying okay and you sending the letter, it's not a undue amount of work, but my takeaway was what a good idea for them to rally support from all sorts of associated groups, and if we wanted to acquire land, we should probably create a list of groups that we too want to get letters like that from to strengthen our bid for land. And it hadn't really occurred to me to kind of go to New Haven or go to Orange or go to,
Yeah.
The other thing that made me feel a little uncomfortable is I wasn't knowledgeable about it. So to kind of endorse what somebody was going to do and not really know what the ecological impact was going to be and all that.
Oh
I mean,
my God. if you saw it 20 years ago, they've done a lot of work in that, really cleaning up that area.
they've
Really?
even cleaned up a lot
Oh.
more garbage recently, because I had been cleaning up the garbage there, and this year it didn't look like a disaster
Yeah,
to do.
I mean, the things they were pulling out of there, this is,
Yeah, Gather New Haven, by the way, and I should have said this, it is the New Haven
It's an
Land
ally,
Trust.
Oh,
Renamed, I believe they merged with something, but they renamed to Gather New Haven,
what was the prior name?
the New Haven Land Trust.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
they own the parcel that's sort of behind the hotel there.
I'm surprised they didn't go to the Woodbridge Land Trust and get a letter from them.
didn't they?
I think because it's the West River, and I think because they know Frank DeLeo, in particular, has been very involved, and they know, Frank's been very interested in making trail connections that'll go up to West Rock Ridge and under the Wilbur Cross and connect to the West River Trail all the way up to the Darling House. So they know of his work, and the desire to do that, and know that.
And he was part of the Conservation Commission not long
Yes,
ago.
yes, that's right. And so there's a connection there.
Mhm.
I think they're applying for grants, and I think the people who review the grants like to know that partners and stakeholders, surrounding community is supportive of what's being done. And that's why I was so impressed by the hotel,
Yeah.
whatever, the letter.
I was too.
And I thought that was a great thing, because
That
often
shows
people don't
This is
want
going right through it. Yep.
trails coming near their property, but this
Right.
property owner definitely sees it that apparently as an advantage in helping his neighborhood and helping his business overall.
I read it as he was looking to get a free amenity. That was just my skeptical view of it.
Well,
No.
well, I mean, well, let me piggyback off of that. I think it is an amenity, and he said that in the letter, that it's an amenity for people staying at the hotel. I don't know the clientele there, and perhaps, I mean, but if you can improve it, it would be. And, it could be an amenity for the people who live down Merritt Avenue, Manila Avenue.
Yeah.
Because if it is connected and it's a nice trail,
Mhm.
going the other way to the Darling House is all road walk. Now, it'll be a little bit under the Merritt, but then they could get into, into a nice part of New Haven. It's a very nice wetlands there behind the river. They took the dam out, and it's really regenerated. So, and I don't, it is out of town, admittedly, but we have some interest in them being successful. I think it would enhance the trails on our side eventually, and probably, turnaround is fair play, and it wouldn't be us doing it, it'd be the land trust now, but, they might be willing to help and write a supportive letter coming back. So,
So shall we
that's the
vote?
reason to do it, so.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I
So-
just
Any
don't know
thoughts,
enough
Valerie?
about it.
No,
Okay,
No thoughts, okay.
so, I'm getting a sense of a mixed opinion here, so I guess we will,
No, I think I mean, personally, I think it's a good move,
Well,
you know?
Can we
and
call a vote?
okay.
I
Yep,
propose that we
I
Get some
will
allies.
motion that,
I think even Massaro Farm signed, right? There was,
I don't recall that, but it may be, it
I thought they had a letter in there too.
could be,
Scroll.
and I didn't read all the letters, I'll be honest. I
Sorry.
was flipping through and I saw the one from the hotel, and that's the one that struck me. So I'll motion that the commission endorse submitting a letter to Gather New Haven in support of their grant application. Somebody like to second that?
Yeah, I second that.
Any further discussion on it? All those,
I guess I just have one question. What would be the impact on Woodbridge? What's the impact on Woodbridge? I'm just asking this as an honest question. I'm not
Sure.
trying, it's not a loaded question. I just don't know that much about it.
impact if we write the letter, or impact if they do this?
If they do this, I mean, because I'd hate to endorse something and realize in a few years that it's something that people are not in favor of,
Yeah.
and we just endorse something that we didn't know that much about. At least I didn't know that much about.
Yeah. Well, I think to be fair, we only know as much as is in here.
Sure.
Mhm.
And you would have had to, spend a little time with that to understand it to the level they've developed it. They haven't, it's a general plan, it's not the detailed final plan yet. But, did you have an answer for Paul's question, Diane?
So I think, I'm not entirely sure what you mean by what the impact is. Like, is there any responsibility for Woodbridge to upkeep the?
Is there any benefit to Woodbridge for doing it? I mean, what's in it for us, basically?
Sure.
Or
sure.
is there anything negative to it?
Sure,
Yeah,
well,
I
I
just
think,
don't know.
you know, there's no way we can look into the crystal ball, right, and see once they add more green space and they connect it, if there's, you know, any downside to that. But from a positive side, number one, if we're going after something and we've supported this project, it would be likely that we could get, you know, some of these groups to also endorse what we're looking to do. So it's a little bit of, I don't know, camaraderie, I would imagine, from the land preservation, conservation committees around the area. Number two, what I think Tim was just explaining is what they're trying to do with this area is hopefully extend the trails a little further north, which ultimately we could connect to some potential trails in Woodbridge, especially with that area down, right, the Merritt Avenue
Right.
lands that were just
Right.
preserved, or set aside in that development. So, from like a real estate advantage, the closer proximity, I don't know if you have a real estate background.
Not really, no.
Oh, okay, you know, there's definitely like increase of property value.
Oh, right, to have open space,
yeah,
but it's
to
already
be-
open, I guess it's already open space, so that's the
Well,
kind
this
of
is
the.
like passive recreation.
This is like changing its use in some respects from what it currently is, which is just raw open space land, I understand, to something that's
Well,
more of a recreational area, and
The-
I don't know
the-
whether that's something.
There-
Passive- I
it's an
think passive
improvement.
recreation.
There are rough paths there already.
Okay,
What they want to do is to make it just as nice as the paths they've done further on towards New Haven.
okay,
Which includes benches, you know, widening, some handicapped access, as
Accessibility.
I saw,
yeah.
accessibility, thank you.
Okay.
And make it better. And one thing I'll add, Paul, is that Woodbridge has endorsed the West River Greenway. They were part of the group of towns that have endorsed that. So in a way, they've already expressed support for something that's not entirely within the bounds of Woodbridge. It's a regional,
Mhm.
or a regional.
Well, water
play.
is regional, it's
Yeah,
not
wa-
town, so
water, right.
environmentally, it makes sense to try to
well,
create a whole
part of the West
habitat.
River is in Woodbridge, too, so,
Yes, right.
Right,
Okay.
and I
Yeah.
think maybe by having a plan and having something concrete like this, it also allows them to upkeep that property.
Yes.
Which is important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is important,
And,
instead of just those
and,
rough
and
trails.
maybe, you know, helps with the improvement of that general area,
Mhm.
which was a concern for some of the folks down in Merritt Avenue.
so if they did do this work, who would maintain it, or,
It's all the
It'd
New
be
Haven.
Gather New Haven, I think it's addressed in there, but
Yeah.
they had a maintenance budget in there.
okay,
I mean, you know, another reason I passed it out is there were some good examples in there of how you know, of a grant, and then what's needed in the grant, and then some good practices, the maintenance budget for anticipating what's it gonna take. And some of it is gonna be done by Gather New Haven, some by the city, I think, if I remember correctly. So,
Yeah, I think we should take this as an example of something that can be successful that we could kind
Yeah.
of modify in
yeah,
our
it
own
looks
way.
like, and I don't have a lot of data points, but it looks like they did a very nice job with that.
Maybe we could pass that around at some point, or get copies of it, or you could,
It
Email.
was in the
The
email
whole
that I
thing?
sent, yeah.
oh, I
I
didn't.
sent the whole of it.
Oh, I only
Yeah.
saw part of it, okay.
Look back at the email.
And I think, in general principle, it is good to support neighbors trying to
Yes.
preserve open space and land
Yeah.
and,
Doing the types of things we're trying to do,
right,
yeah.
especially when they connect.
Mm.
So, with that, can I call the motion? Anything
We
else?
already have
Paul?
a motion on the table, we're
Yes.
in
Okay,
a
second.
second, so we're in discussion.
Yes.
So now we're calling the vote?
Paul,
Unless there's further
I don't
anything-
have any more
Okay.
questions.
Do I have to say I have an interest in that area, do I excuse myself or,
You may abstain.
okay.
From that.
I mean, I don't, do I have to, but we do own property in that area.
Since,
I don't think you,
Unless the vote is going to,
yeah.
like benefit you, somehow like give you an economic advantage or something, I don't think you need to abstain from the vote.
Well, it
That would be
benefit
my-
the
my
area,
take
so
on it.
I'm just disclosing stuff.
Yeah, no, and it's appreciated. I don't think you have a direct financial interest in this, so I'm comfortable with your casting a vote. So we'll call the vote. All those in favor?
So this is in favor of issuing the letter.
Of
Yes.
favor of, of issuing the letter of support. That's one, two, three, four, five in favor, against, one, and that would be no abstentions. Thank you, Kathy. Motion passes 5-1. I will mention, before moving on to the next item, that the Orange Land Trust, for last meeting, the Orange Land Trust had similarly asked us to do a letter for their upgrades to the Racebrook track, very heavily used area. We did not have a quorum last meeting, so we were not able to support sending the letter. I asked them if they still wanted the letter, and they said no, they got the grant,
Oh, okay.
so it wasn't necessary.
Even without us.
So, now, they want to do some other things, and they wanted us to consider throwing some money towards the project down there. I thought that was a non-starter.
Would the project be in Woodbridge or would it
In
be in
Orange.
Orange?
That sounds like a selectman to selectman kind of request as opposed to commission to commission.
good point.
Why did they think, just out of curiosity, why would they think that Woodbridge would pay for something done in Orange?
I did not have any, it just came in an email. I
Okay.
didn't have the opportunity to get a full explanation.
Never hurts to ask, right?
Never heard, and I think that's probably,
Exactly.
you know, when you're,
Mhm.
when you're.
I guess
hurt-
it's not an issue because they don't want it anymore, but just curious.
Yeah. I will say that, well.
Can we go on?
We'll say, I'm gonna move on because we have a guest coming. So we will get through, hopefully, all these items before Andy gets here. We may not get to the Audubon Society before he does. In the initiatives, first one up, the Jumping Word program that's been indefinitely postponed, canceled really in a way, and the question before the group, as Kate has left and we weren't able to turn it around fast enough to meet the original targets, the question for the group is what would we like to do with that?
Do we have a speaker?
We have two people who, one expressed interest to Kate, one expressed willingness to, if I remember my email correctly, to our land use officer, Chris, that both said they would speak.
Okay.
We
They
were
both-
sort of debating if we,
On the.
whether it would be,
both.
have them on the same program made sense. My thought on it was you have one program and you do another program with the second person as a follow-up, but,
I think
That's
we
a-
just need one program. I don't think we're gonna get two programs out of
yeah.
it.
So we do have speakers.
Okay.
You know, now, was it Kate's relationship that got the first speaker? I don't know, so that would have to be found out. But do we?
So what would it involve? Just us reserving a room at the library and then inviting people like the Garden Club and other organizations we think would be interested in and arrange for the speaker to come in to speak?
Yeah,
Is
I
that
mean,
kind of what it
there's
would
the-
be, or is there more to it than that?
Well, there's not a lot more to it than that. You know, certainly we need, you know, a couple people on the commission willing to, you know, pick it up and see it through. So get the speaker side of it, so make sure you know, you work with the speaker, who's it gonna be, what's the date?
Make sure you have a room
What's-
first, and
yeah,
then make sure you have
and-
a speaker.
And, well, depending, if it is gonna be,
available.
Kate's thought was to have it virtual, so it could be recorded and other people could see it. But if there's a different sense now that COVID receding a little bit, and perhaps it's in person, then, yeah, then you have to figure out what room you wanna get, and coordinate the room and speaker. So there's that side of it. And then there's, to me, the publicity side of it, you know, making sure you contact Tony to get it into the town newspaper, and what other mechanisms. So there's some groups that'd be interested, the Garden Club being one, and we could probably think of other groups that would have interest in just getting the word out. And you know, and I don't
And
know
did
that
you have
there's too
interest
much more than
in
that.
doing this? Because I'd be willing to work with you on it.
Sure. Yeah, no, I had said that before, I'd be happy to help out with other.
But I think if it can't happen by June, it kind of,
You missed the season.
Yeah, because it's got,
Yeah.
you want to do it when people are getting ready to start gardening and.
or even involved in gardening and becoming aware.
Yeah, and that,
So I
and that,
think early
Which is-
June
Which
might
is
be.
why I brought up the boot brush thing from before, because my understanding was what we had put into, what the dollars that we had allocated into the budget were to get some boot brushes.
yeah.
For some of the areas, either the trails or was it the community garden areas?
Yeah, there was a thought around that.
You know, around town.
Yeah, and, you know, quite honestly, we didn't have any good information, knowledge, data, that brute brushes were an effective,
Yeah.
you know, that's a reason to put brute brushes in for jumping worms.
Right.
If somebody says, yeah, that would help, then you make certain choices of where to put the boot brushes.
Well, maybe we should learn from these people and then.
Yeah,
Before
well, that was the
the
point,
site.
let's have
Right.
the seminar
Again,
first.
Makes sense.
And then plan what to do with the brute brushes.
So,
Again, we have money
should we
for
plan
next
for
year for the brute
Thursday
brushes.
during our meeting and have our meeting in the library and have it like our June meeting?
So I would imagine.
Gotta
it would have to
check
be
the
done like May.
library first for,
Yeah. I wonder if we could find anyone who could do that. Anyway, but maybe we should have it a little earlier than our meeting
Yeah. Oh,
in June, because by June, the third week in June, we're sort of getting to
yeah, that's why I think maybe it's gotta be a May presentation.
late May, early June. Okay,
give me a idea of a date and I can check that tomorrow.
okay.
Perfect.
And who has the number for these people?
Kate had one of them.
Kate has
I
one,
don't have my phone
and
on
Chris
me.
Sullivan, you know, and I have an
Could you
email
text Kate?
with the
and have
name.
my
But
phone?
I would stick with the first person, actually.
The Kate person?
Yeah. Was it Anise or?
I don't know.
Sorry, don't
I was
know.
mispronouncing the name and now I forget which one was, it
can't
was either
remember.
Anise or Anise. I think it was pronounced Anise.
Okay.
Dobson.
We'll find out.
Dobson was the name.
Sorry, I cannot recall.
And then
So,
we did talk to the Ag Commission. They are a party of interest, and so
Right.
we want to keep Jerry Shaw, Town Hall here apprised if we,
As
Pick
you
a second.
suggested in that newsletter that they send out once a
Are you
month, maybe they
considering
could put
really
something in it,
Thursdays?
or in the paper.
is that a
yeah,
good day or not?
that's what Tony would
It
do for us.
probably
She's in
would be.
charge of that.
Okay,
But
So
So how
Thursday,
about if the three of us at the end of the meeting just meet and talk logistics for 5 minutes?
Sure, perfect.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I'll
If it's
leave it
early
in
enough,
your
I gotta
capable
go.
hands. That's
Yeah.
great. I
can let me-
love the fact, thank you for picking that back up.
It should be interesting. Well, even if we
Yeah,
don't have
I-
many people, as long
I-
as we're there, we can learn.
Oh, Tim, is there any thought about the other, invasive insect, the spotted lanternfly? I know that seems to be, something that people are talking about now that's also invasive, or we just committed to one, or?
Well,
We can only handle one invasive critter per year.
depends upon really the speaker, right?
Yeah, and
I
how,
mean,
if it's a
if
half-hour talk,
she's-
or if it's an hour and a half talk.
Yeah.
If it's a half hour, we
You
might
know,
have
it was
time.
great, the Yukon Master Gardener Group, they generally have, somebody who focuses on invasives, plants or
Yeah, and Andy can promote this too.
Yeah, he is one of the master gardeners
Purview though, under
from
this
that program.
committee's?
If it affects natural resources, it's, I believe, I take it it's in our purview. So if it's something that we see as, we know
threat.
jumping worms are in town. We know that they're an increasing problem here locally. Spider lantern I've seen on the news, but I haven't
They haven't
seen
gotten here yet,
a lot
I
of
heard.
reports of them here.
Yeah.
So I think maybe a priority is jumping worms, and then,
Just
You know,
like the
certainly-
healthcare companies, right? Preventative actions so
Yeah.
that they don't get here.
Right.
And then you also
Yeah.
have to triage
Okay,
the problems
well,
you
we
have.
can always also call UConn and say if they want someone to come up for, if this person's only gonna talk for 45 minutes, someone else can talk for 20,
yeah,
if they're gonna talk for an hour and a half, but.
Yeah, and
Maybe,
UConn
if she's,
master-
maybe she's knowledgeable enough to talk
Yeah,
about
I-
that
Well,
topic.
that's what I said.
I
She
think-
might know as much about them as,
Pe-
Yeah.
people, yeah, she may be able to give you 5 minutes on spotted
on
lantern
lantern
fly.
worm, yeah,
Yeah,
Any
lantern
number of
worms.
other
as a throw-in.
Okay,
Yeah, all of them worms.
all right.
Paul and I had a brief discussion on the tree preservation, sort of before the formal meeting started, so I got caught up a little bit. It sounds like there's, well, Paul, I'll let you say it because for the.
Do you wanna give
everybody-
the update on that, Barbara? Or do you want me to?
Go ahead.
Okay, so Barbara was going to organize a meeting between the three of us, Diana, Barb, and myself, to talk to Chris Sullivan.
Okay.
Talk to her about what we'd like to accomplish in the tree ordinance and see if we can get some consensus in terms of the right place for it.
Right,
Right now, we're thinking that probably in the subdivision regulations, because that's where somebody is already supposed to be looking at some of these issues, and formalizing it more, making it more of a requirement as opposed to an optional sort of thing. And that's where we're at on it. Our goal is to meet again at some point in the next few weeks and kind of outline what we'd already talked about in terms of what we would suggest would be in it, and then work with Chris to figure out where it would best be put, like where that regulation would be best put. And so when we do propose something, it's got something that could be potentially workable for the town.
okay. So you worked through that this coming month, and you thought probably something of substance coming before the whole commission would be more in the May timeframe.
Probably, yes.
Okay, all right, that's fair.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Just an ancillary comment, it really has nothing to do with the tree ordinance, but if it's headed towards subdivision regulations, those I believe are in the province of TPZ.
Yep.
And those do though need to get public approval, there's some type of public hearing on them.
Okay.
And then, so if we were to do that and make that recommendation, I would, and this is ancillary, attached to that as one entity, all of itself and good, I would probably like to attach other suggestions we might have for the subdivision regulations. And the one I'm thinking specifically is the pointing out that adding to that regulation at the top that these regulations have been superseded, and you'll find the up-to-date ones in the appendix, because of the way those subdivision regulations read now, there's nothing that tells you that those regulations have been superseded
Mhm.
until you get all the way to the appendix.
Right.
So people don't, and the table of contents point you to the superseded ones. So we want to get that
It is
straightened
kind
out
of
as well.
confusing. You look at it, and you don't know whether both apply or only one of them.
Yeah, yeah. So we want to make a recommendation that they straighten that out too. Okay, great.
Light reading.
Yeah. Sharon and I talked briefly about the Green Fund before the meeting started. And the Green Fund was something that Kate had brought to our attention, and she was going to get in touch with Sharon when they were ready to look into that, and that didn't transpire. So this is going to just, we may, when we turn our attention back to grants, we may want to look at this again. We'll keep it in mind, but this will probably come off our tracking list for now. don't think we're taking any action on it right now. Correct, Sharon?
So far.
Okay.
So just before we get too far off the tree preservation, the three of us will get together and figure out what dates work for getting together with Peggy. Okay.
Good.
Did you see the
I did see it, but I read it like 6 weeks ago or something, whenever you
You
sent
don't
it to me.
remember this?
But yeah, no, I think maybe if we all kind of put our heads together, we could
So
come up
I'd
with
like to get to
something.
the Audubon thing, so can we just do the
Right.
Historical Society and just talk about the Audubon for a second before Andy comes?
Yeah,
Do you have
it'll take about, well,
You got it.
it'll take a minute and a half to do the Historical Society,
Okay.
I think.
Minute and a half.
Go.
Barbara, is there
Okay,
something you
go,
wanted
Barbara.
to
I'm timing you.
No,
offer on the Historical Society?
no,
Okay.
Okay.
I'd like to, I want to read a letter that I'd like to send to the Historical Society, to,
You'd like us to send or just you to send?
well,
On behalf of the commission.
on behalf of the commission,
Okay.
as it says at the bottom here.
All right.
But I'll do the physical sending. This is to sort of maybe jumpstart their effort to work with us, as we've talked about. So it's to the Amity Woodbridge Historical Society from the Conservation Commission regarding the historic points of interest along Woodbridge's walking paths. The Woodbridge Conservation Commission is constantly seeking to upgrade the experience of residents who walk the paths of the Woodbridge Trail System within the town's open space. One of the enhancements we would like to undertake in partnership with the Amity Woodbridge Historical Society is to provide walkers with information on sites of historical interest that are on or near these trails. This would enhance the experience of current trail users and perhaps attract additional residents of the town to the town's open space. We are hopeful the Amity Woodbridge Historical Society is willing to work with us to gather and appropriately disseminate pertinent information on these historic sites. If so, we would like to have a meeting with a few members of each group to flesh out the idea and start the process as soon as possible. Thank you for your consideration. Respectfully, Tim Austin, Chair, on behalf of the Woodbridge Conservation Commission. Send that off to
What do you
the
think?
So
society.
So my question is, why would you refer to it as walking trails as opposed to the greenway? Because it is the greenway, right? I just, maybe it's a,
Not,
not entirely.
the Greenway is a subset of all the trails in Woodbridge.
okay.
I think it's a great idea.
And we've talked about this, this is
There are
not
many
new,
more
it's
trails
just
than
we're
just,
Yeah.
trying to get,
No, I think it's a good
Yeah,
idea too. I was just
jumpstart.
curious why you were calling it walking trails
Yeah.
as opposed to the greenway.
yeah,
Including the
for that
Greenway.
reason, to be inclusive, because I don't know where the historical sites are. That's why we need them. So they can
Are we
help
thinking
us.
that there'll be a plaque or a information placard or
well, I like
To
Tim's
spring for
idea.
the
I think
judges.
that's phenomenal.
what's Tim's idea?
The
QR
QR
code.
codes,
Oh,
because I think it
is there cell
saves.
phone coverage in all
Right.
places? Or?
Well, that's a good question. We'd have to check that out. But I
Yeah.
mean, to me, it saves a lot of work to begin with. Making signs,
Mhm.
installing signs, and more in, filling up the woods with signs.
And everybody's got a smartphone, so, yeah.
And everybody's got smartphones, and you can change it, you can add to it, you can do all kinds of things with it, and it helps with maintenance, which I think is the most difficult thing of all. You see signs all, dilapidated around. So that just happened to be something that I thought would be wonderful.
There he is.
So I'll send that off.
Do we need a motion to approve that?
Yeah, I think, well, we probably should.
Okay.
I just asked, when would this start? Is this already in development?
No,
Oh.
we would have this get together with a few members from each to just talk about it.
It will probably be read or brought up at the meeting, which is next week, meeting of the Board of the Historical Society, which is next Thursday. And so they'll get a response and we can move forward.
I'd like to make a motion that we send that letter to Historical Society, asking them to cooperate with us in identifying the historic areas and maybe doing a write-up for those areas.
And, any second? Somebody second that one?
Sure. Seems to be
Diana?
my role tonight. I would also
Is any-
second that one,
any-
just to make your life easier.
Do we have any further discussion?
I
No.
think it's great.
Okay. Sounds like we are all in favor, so I'm gonna, if no one objects, we will adopt by unanimous consent.
Great.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And I think, since Andy's here, it's
Well, can we just talk about the Audubon thing? Is that a long discussion?
I don't know.
Can I just ask a question about it since it's
Sure.
on the
Sure.
agenda
Oh, I
next?
read that wrong.
Is it that the Woodbridge Country Club has had the Audubon Society come and look at the property and deem that there are all these species that are there or likely to be there, and they are recommending it's a valuable area to preserve?
Did you have
I
an
only-
opportunity to read?
I only read parts of it,
Okay.
but that's what that is what they're saying.
I
There are a lot of birders that go there. I don't know if anybody invited them or not, or they've just been going there for the last few years.
Oh, I'm sorry, a lot of what?
A lot of birders, people looking
Oh,
at birds.
birders, okay.
Birders. Cool.
yeah.
I think that's what they're called, right?
Sure.
Yes, it is. Sharon, I don't know the answer to your question. Is actually one of my questions. What was the origin of this? Paul had written to us all and suggested this be on the agenda, so I wanted to put it on and have that discussion, leave some time for it. But I don't know the origin of the study, and that was among my questions. I don't know if you have background on this.
I don't know really. I could ask, because it was forwarded it to me, so I could ask and
Okay.
see why. I know from what people told me that there are a lot of birders that go and walk the property and track birds and observe birds and so
Yeah.
forth. So it's been something that's been going on for the last few years. And the Audubon Society, there was an article in the newspaper about it within the last month or so.
Mm-hmm.
And so the reason why I circulated among the group is I thought, one, it was interesting, and two, I know that Massaro Farm gets grants for developing pollinator pathways at
Right.
Massaro Farm. You might be more familiar with that than I am. But one of the areas in the report they're talking about is improvements to the habitat.
Yeah.
And they're suggesting some of those sort of things. And apparently there are grants through NRCS. Is that the right acronym for it? The NRCS, and there are grants for pollinator paths. And I don't know that much about it, but I got the contact information for the farmer at Massaro Farm to ask what the criteria was and some of the details on the grants that they get, and they get grants every year on it. And my thought that might be something that we could pursue also.
May I make a suggestion? I feel like this is a really important topic for us to talk and have time
Yeah.
to review, and I, from what I've heard so far, I'm really interested in it, and I want to make sure that I've read all the material and I can be very supportive in the conversation. Given the time that we have left on the meeting tonight, and we have Andy's here to speak, then do we want to table this with a homework assignment that everybody reads it?
I think that makes sense too, and I can follow
Yeah,
up with the
we-
farmer and find out
Perfect.
what the grants are that he gets.
Yeah.
And so we can put it in context. 'Cause I don't know if the grants he gets are more agriculture related, or is it just to develop pollinators? I'm not really sure.
No,
Sure.
it's agriculture.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah, but I mean, is it,
Well, but there's
is it,
also
Yeah.
funding for, sorry.
and there's also pollinator, other people who are,
Right.
Okay.
might know more, even if their
Yeah, I'm not
focus
sure
isn't
what
that.
the NRCS
And
is.
also there's
Yeah, we
invasive
can have
plants
that conversation
there,
about
and there
this
might be a
before.
grant to
Okay,
help with
thank
the
you.
invasives there.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's
And then who knows how much support we'll get from the town who wants to.
yeah. There's probably
Is anybody here involved with Massaro Farm? No,
I've-
okay.
I've-
just buying
Yeah.
Stuff, okay.
food
all
in
right.
the
I'm slightly
summer.
involved with Massaro.
All right, so I'll reach out to him and find out.
Well, yeah,
Well,
we have
let's
members
talk
of the
together.
audience who are involved in Massaro Farm.
Okay.
I had
my walking buddy is on the board,
So
so.
it's a question we can
Okay.
probably ask Andy when he's in front of it with us.
In addition
Paul-
to the lantern.
Paul, I would, great suggestion, we'll defer the rest of the discussion and people can read in light of the context you've now given us. But I would surely like to know who commissioned this and, for
Beth
what,
Heller.
for what purpose,
Yeah, I can
And-
find out. I
and,
don't know
I think,
the answer to that, honestly.
that would be
I
helpful.
mean, I've been told that,
Sharon, were you being serious or?
No.
Okay.
I've been told that, there, for the last several years, have been people that park along like Woodfield Road.
Yeah,
And go into the property
yeah.
and observe birds.
Yeah.
And there was an article in, the Woodbridge Town News, last month or the month before. It talked about, this study.
Interesting.
And I don't know why they decided to do it, or they just have been doing
Yeah.
it and they decided to study it. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I'm very curious about it. There is, and just to the point of the improvements to the property, I noticed the suggestions on how to mow and mowing the edges, and I think that's good, and something I think we could bring to the town and try
As
to.
long as it isn't developed, we should help it be as
Yeah,
naturally
right.
helpful as possible.
Right,
and,
right.
And, not getting in the way of, just, it may not be ever developed, it may be partially developed, but, what we can do will help for both, whatever happens to it. Okay,
Okay.
good, all right, so we'll
So
put it
maybe we
on.
put that in for the,
Yep.
for the next meeting.
Yeah, as well. Will be a full agenda next meeting. Andy, welcome. Please come and sit and I'll,
Just a comfy chair?
this,
Yes.
it's,
The hot seat.
yeah. So, so we welcome Andy Danzig, who is the town trail master and master gardener, I hear, and knows something about Massaro Farms. Andy, I don't know how many members you know.
I know you and Sharon.
Okay.
I've seen other people around, but I don't know names.
Okay, so we'll start with Diana. I'm only gonna say last names because.
Diana McCarthy.
Yeah,
Yes.
well,
I knew you
and,
would come to you.
Missed you at the science fair this week?
Yeah, I had to turn it down. I had too much going on.
I get it.
and this is Paul Harrigan,
Hi, nice to meet you.
and, Sharon, Barbara Hayes-Smith,
Barbara Hagan.
Barbara, okay.
and.
Valerie King.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, thank you for coming and joining us. And I had kind of previewed some of the things I thought you were going to address talk to the group about, but I'll leave that for you to pick an order and what you want to talk about.
Okay, so you want me to talk about the trail stuff first or Massaro, or pollinators?
I know, right?
We better talk about the trail stuff first.
Add invasive species at the end of that.
That's in here already. So I'll just give you a brief overview of what I do as trail master and what we've done and what we're in the process of doing. So I've been trail master since fall of 2019, I believe. Seems like a lot longer, but so the way I've understood my role is to kind of coordinate trail issues because there's 35 or so miles of trails in the town, and some are managed by the town, some by the Woodbridge Land Trust, some by the Woodbridge Parks Association. And so when people just hiking the trails, they see an issue or whatever, they notify me and I can contact, I'm kind of like the point person to let the land trust know, or you got something down, a tree down on your property, or let the town know we have an issue or whatever. So I'm just kind of a point person for that. This year, we've done, in the past, we've organized some work events, volunteer events. We have a list of volunteers that we maintain. And we've done some periodic trail work events to do different things. And this year, we decided to make it more routine. So we've called it a second Sunday of the month. And we've had, I think we started in the fall. And we were able to keep that schedule until April, I think, because of the holiday. We're going to move it to, in April and May, move it to the third Sunday. But we've been able to keep that, that schedule. And some of the things we've done are removed fallen trees and cleared invasives from the Blue Trail and Racebrook Estates. We had about 10 to 12 volunteers came out for that. We've convinced the town to remove dead ash trees that were by trails that were of fall risk at two places, at Oak Hill Lane and at the end of Castaway Road. We've cleared and rerouted a spur trail from Oak Hill Lane to the Fitzgerald Tract. We had about 6 to 8 volunteers for that. We had 5 adults and 2 children at work we did at on the blue-yellow trail in the Water Authority property between Amity Road and Sperry Road, which, even though it's Water Authority, it's by agreement, the Woodbridge kind of maintains that trail. It had been neglected for a long time. There was a bridge that was the scans. We reset the bridge over a stream. We cleared a lot of trees out of the way and helped kind of be able to navigate that trail that comes across from on the west side of Amity Road up that hill there. It comes down, so now you can cross that road and continue to Sperry Road. Let's see. At the end of Castaway Road, this is also another Water Authority property that we've created we cleared and reblazed a trail that goes from the end of Castaway Road to the Sperry Road area and connects to the Water Authority trails.
Into Sperry Park.
Into Sperry
And
Park,
the
yeah.
Sperry Park town land up there.
So we had a nice turnout. We had 13 volunteers, including 5 or 6 scouts.
Yeah, and I will say that the scouts were very excited to be there. Talked to the troop leaders afterwards, and they're going to be coming back. They're not going to be here, or they weren't with us this past Sunday because they were camping.
We gave them a pass for that. But no, it was nice to see, people bring their kids out, and we've had other events where, people ask me, can I bring my kids? And I said, absolutely. The more you can get kids involved in nature, the better. So that's been very successful. Let's see, we reopened the entrance to the White Trail that's from Rimmon Road that connects to the Fitzgerald Tract. So that's just down the hill from Oak Hill Lane. No, it's the Ranch Road it's between Oak Hill and Ranch Road. We did another work last week at Ranch Road. This just I guess west of Oak Hill Lane. You wouldn't know there was an entrance until last December because it was just solid multiflora and other things. It's kind of right between 2 guardrails. There's a nice opening there, and we had 4 people out there. We cleared out all that invasive stuff and really made a nice opening there, and got a lot of trash out of that also. And then I think, Tim, did you contact the state to get that culvert cleared out, or that was on their schedule? You initiated that. So the entrance to that trail is right by a culvert that was all clogged up with stuff. So Tim got the state, told the state about it, and they came in and did a nice job and cleaned it out, put new riprap in. So once we get, we just need some signage there to let people know that there's a trail there and to blaze it. And there's another opportunity for people to enter the Fitzgerald Tract from a different route.
Who would put that signage up?
Well, we haven't got the signage yet, but that's on the agenda here.
So Diana brought up Ranch Road, and that was this
Yeah,
past
so
Sunday.
Ranch Road was the next one.
Yeah.
We were last week, and from the end of Ranch Road into the Blue Trails there in the western side of the Fitzgerald Tract, there were, I don't know how many trees were falling across the trail there, but those were cleared out as far as we could go in the time we had. There was also a boardwalk that was all basically non-functional that was reset. So that's, we decided to put the boardwalk above the water instead of below the water.
That's
Yeah.
nice.
So,
So,
Yeah.
you know,
Good idea.
the common theme that you hear here is access.
Yeah.
There are a lot of access trails that have just been neglected over time, and the thrust has been to give access back to people in the neighborhoods that are close to these access points.
That whole area is just covering with like burning bush.
yeah, well, we removed, besides removing the falling trees and resetting the boardwalk, we removed and cut back invasives, which were, you know, the big three, the burning bush, the barberry, and multiflora with, you know, occasional
Yeah,
bittersweet.
that was not a lot of we on that one, the invasives this past Sunday. You did most of that yourself,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
You know, with a-
We
with
had
a
6
broken-
people.
With a broken hand pick.
What time on these Sundays do you guys meet?
11,
So
started 11, it's
11
11 to
to
12:30
nominally.
is the official time. Oftentimes we go later.
How do you decide what trails you're gonna work on?
By committee, you know, someone will say there's an issue here. I've noticed, you know, Jason's very, he's on the trails a lot, and he'll say, oh, he saw the issue at this area by Ranch Road,
Okay.
you know, and
Yeah,
suggested
that's,
that one.
Jason
Tim-
Morrell, he's the immediate past chair of the Conservation Commission. He's
Okay.
And,
Part
you know,
of it.
Tim has been a great lead on, you know, with having suggestions on different things. We've got a meeting tomorrow to discuss another trail area on the eastern side of the Racebrook Estates. It's, and also, you know, if I hear from residents who contact me, because I have a Trail Master email address at the, you know, trailmaster@woodbridgect.org, so people can email me that way. Jason is maintaining I maintain the list also. I have a, you know, list of volunteers, but anytime people contact me, they see the notice on the website or in the newsletter, you know, announcing the second Sunday event, I'll get an email and say, oh, I'd like to, you know, participate. How do I do that? And I'll send their email to Jason, and he'll put it on the list, because he has what's called a MailChimp email blast, I guess it's software. So it's easier. I was doing the emails before, and doing it, you know, from my Outlook system, it was kind of cumbersome. And with MailChimp, he's able to do it all with one shot, and it makes it easier for me.
Okay.
So.
Andy, why don't you move on to the
Yeah.
signage and
So, just one other thing I wanted to mention in terms of my coordination role. One of the issues that we've had in terms of rerouting a trail is at the Park Lane area where the new solar farm is going in. It's been under construction for several years now. They cleared all the trees out, and then they had a pause in their plans for a couple of years, but they're supposed to be restarting. But one of the trails went through that property, and so that needs to be rerouted. So I've been coordinating with the engineer leading the construction of that, so we'll be able to work together in terms of rerouting that trail and not interfere with their construction work. We're also working on revising the trail maintenance guide. And okay, so in terms of our needs, in terms of as a trail committee, one of the main things we've identified is having signage to mark the trailheads. So both these kind of spur trails, these access trails that we talked about, that we've cleared the path, but now we need to put a sign up, let people know there's a trail here.
One of the wooden signs that you have in all the other places?
Well, there's different kinds of signs. I think Tim's got some examples of different types of things, that could be put on, just like fence posts.
I think I've shown these before. These are off-the-shelf signs. For the most part, you can do custom signs. They're metal signs. They're 12 inches by 18 inches, and they go just on.
Where do the wooden ones that are kind of rustic looking, the big ones, where do they come from?
Land trust.
Land trust.
Oh, the land trust does that,
Yeah.
okay.
I think so.
Yeah,
And those are suitable, like trailheads, for the
major trailheads.
yeah. So
would say.
we were kind of like some of the trails we're talking about are like access trails to the main areas, like those two trails I talked about to Fitzgerald Track. Actually, we have 3 access trails now to Fitzgerald Track that we've cleared out. That's
for-
one of the major needs that we have. And the trails signs would also could be sort of a dual function if we put, no dumping signs, or just to have more interest in, once we have more foot traffic at these trails, people will be less inclined to be dumping. Most of the dumping we've seen has been debris. People will clear fallen branches and leaves and stuff from their yard, and they'll kind of throw it in, off their property, and ends up on the trails. So,
Castaway was especially bad. There was
Yeah, we've had that.
4 foot high, was it about 4 foot high?
yeah,
Mound of stuff that had been dumped over the years,
Yeah.
that the town very nicely came in and just flattened for us, so.
trash, we haven't had a major issue with, other than that area along Rimmon Road where we cleared out that entrance. The other major issue that I've been focusing on a lot is just because the master gardener in me just, is so attuned to it, is this removal of invasives.
Thank you.
And
Nice.
it's just been a big issue. So, I mean, you could
I
see
had an
whole...
idea about that. I don't know if now's the right time, but
Sure.
I'm wondering if we couldn't have a specific event where we get the community gardens, the garden club, and the Sorrow board members, and everyone to, and for you to maybe choose a certain plot and have everyone just deal with the invasives in like an acre of some piece of land, and kind of make it fun, and maybe people bring some food and make it a kind of fun thing that brings people together.
Sure. I mean, you could pick, I haven't seen a trail that is not overrun with invasives. To me, one of the worst is, probably the worst is barberry. One, because it just spreads so fast, and also it has the dual, the dual badness about it, of providing habitat for ticks that host
So is
the
there a
ticks that host the Lyme
particular acre
disease.
that you could think of, maybe, how about like right at Woodside and Beecher or something, or there's just?
Yeah, I mean, actually, the area we're gonna be at tomorrow, where we're looking to reroute the trail on the eastern end of Fitzgerald Track, that is probably a solid, however many acres there of as far as I can see, of barberry.
Yeah.
But if we
all
could
the
get
way up.
20 or 30 people there for an hour, that could make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, we first attacked that a couple of years ago with one of our first trail events. We had, I don't know, 6 or so of us, and we had 2 brush cutters and other people with rakes and picks to kind of, because you kind of have to cut down the plant first, and then if you don't dig up the roots, they're going to keep coming back. And of course, 2 years later, we cleared out like 3 to 5 feet on either side of the trail, which it's almost like, spitting in the ocean compared to how much is out there, but we just wanted to keep the trail open. And of course, after a couple of years, it'll grow back. So it's a constant battle, unless you can really get it under control.
Just out of curiosity, what do you do with the roots after you dig them up?
I mean, there's so much there, I just leave them on site.
Okay.
And they'll die. I mean, it's ideally you want to do the work before the plant has set berries, because,
No, I just leave it there to have the berries just grow.
yeah, I mean, it's,
Right.
but it's, to haul it out
Birds
is a
carry it
whole
someplace
nother
else.
level of effort, but,
Just for personal interest
Yeah.
myself, what I would do with it, okay.
yeah, I mean, if you can, if you have so actually, that's a great point, I'm glad you mentioned that, because one of my main goals in involving any trail work we do, whether we're doing clearing fallen trees or resetting a boardwalk or blazing the trail, I make it a point to educate all the volunteers that are there what the invasives are, so that they can go home, and I tell them, see if you have these at your home, because these plants did not start growing in the woods. They came from people's landscapes, and the birds transported them around. You know, we love our birds. We talked about the Audubon before and all the stuff with the birds. The birds, they don't read the papers about what's invasive for some reason. They haven't learned that, and you have to work on that with the birds. But until we do that, we need to just stop feeding them these plants. If you look at a burning bush,
You can buy them.
the burning bush, it's like, you know, the native plants that we have, like a winterberry and things that you want to have, you know, berry sets for your birds, you know, the native plants. They don't have a fraction of the amount of berries that the invasive plants have. The barberry and the burning bush in particular, and of course the bittersweet as well. They have just an amazing fruit set. I mean, that's why they're so good at what they do and just spreading so much. So, you know, one of my goals is to just, you know, help conduct, you know, an awareness in the town to let people know that you have this in your home, you can replace it. There are, you know, native alternatives you can use. So, I harp on invasives all the time until people don't want to hear it anymore. But so, in terms of, to your point, Sharon, about how could we do this, the last thing on my list in terms of our needs is equipment to be able to do it. Because it's great to have people out there, and you know, people for the first 15 minutes will be gung-ho going after these thorny bushes until they're like giving blood, like they're at a Red Cross drive, you know. But if we had, you know, better equipment that we can, you know, some people, you know, we've had volunteers that bring their own equipment, which is nice, but it would be nice to be able to have our own equipment that we can use. And, you know, brush cutters are expensive. There's you know, pickaxe, different types of materials that, you know, there's a brush removal pry bar that we saw that might be useful to help, you know, once the brush is cut down to kind of pull it out. So, you know, the more suitable equipment we have for our volunteers to use, the more effective they'll be when they're out there.
Definitely.
So that's everything on my list, unless you have any other questions for me.
Tim, did you think about how they could work and help us with expanding the greenway expansion areas, like the blazing trails in those areas and such?
Well, of course, it's always been on my mind. So as we get, and we talked about figuring out priorities, and we haven't, that's yet to come back before us for us to do. But once we have those priorities and we decide what should be worked on, then I think it goes in the hopper of projects. Andy, you know, has this list that he gets input, and we would put it on there, and hopefully it works its way up, and then that group, the second Sunday group, could then take a segment and, you know, segment by segment, build some of those out. You know, where we have the rights and its woods, we can have that group work on those, certainly.
Okay.
That's certainly been, you know, my way of thinking of how that group can help.
So you're thinking about us prioritizing which ones we think are the ones
Yeah,
we should
I
start with?
think, you know, just, you know, Paul, you had mentioned it'd be good to do that, and I agree. And then we can get together with Andy and maybe some of the others on the trail group and tell them, you know, show them what's there, because we haven't really sat down.
Maybe we can help
with that group and-
recruit more people too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're looking to expand, and news to Andy and share here that we, you know, I did make contact with the right people at Amity High School. There's service hours that students need to have, and so we're now posted, and they will be sending emails to get on the distribution list for second Sundays if they want to sign up for that type of volunteering. So that's up on the poster board, and there's an email blast that will go out to the students that they can sign up for that. So,
Andy, prior to your becoming trailmaster, did they have second Sundays, or this is your innovation? And how did they maintain trails rigorously before then, or not really?
The second Sunday thing is new for us this year. It was suggested, it wasn't my suggestion, that was kind of a committee suggestion. And I'm not sure what was done
Does
before.
everyone meet in one place, or are they told to meet wherever the?
Gotta get you on the mailing list. Yeah, we set a meeting place for each, you know, it's like last week was at, you know, we meet at the end of Ranch Road,
Okay.
or meet at the end of
So-
Castaway Road, or.
Hopefully
So
close
if
to
people
where
are
the work
wondering,
is.
they can contact you personally if they don't have access to some of those emails.
Yeah, yeah, and Jason always attaches a link to the map of the trail where we're gonna be, so you can kind of get a sense,
Got it.
spatial, a sense of where we're going.
And Andy, the email is trailmaster@woodbridge.org, right?
Woodbridge CT, yeah.
woodbridgect.org.
Yeah.
And
The MailChimp email comes from, I think, Woodbridge Trails, whatever domain that Jason set up.
Yeah.
So it's,
Okay.
if they reply to that, I'm not sure where it goes, but.
Yeah, no, they would have to, right now it's set up so they have to
Yeah.
contact you to get put on the list. I think Jason was gonna work at making people could go there directly. But I
Okay, well,
know
this
that he's
isn't
done
stuff
that
we
yet.
need to know.
Yeah, and one of the other thoughts that I had that I would like, you know, in terms of both expanding awareness of our work and also the educational aspect, is to see if that local Woodbridge paper you talked about, the Woodbridge Town News, you know, if I could do a monthly article, or quarterly, whatever it is that
Yeah.
they would be willing to do.
It's a good
And-
idea.
And,
Yeah.
you know, talk about, you know, the trail of the
Great
month
idea.
or whatever, you know, we're just open to ideas on that, but just to have something
worth
that's out there.
pursuing. So, Andy, do you have a way to get tools at, retail or wholesale or
The
cheaper?
town might. I don't.
Or we could go to garden clubs and they might be willing to. I just,
Yeah, or Public Works.
have you talked to
Yeah.
Public
Yeah,
Works?
we actually have, we have a discussion last, I don't know, a few months ago, with the town and with Tony Genovese about having a modest budget for, it'd be under Public Works for trail maintenance work.
Uh-huh.
Tree removal.
So some of it's for tree removal, but we might be able to put, you know, because once you buy equipment, it's, you know, you're not buying it every year.
Right.
It's just, you know, I inherited some equipment, it was in a storage shed by Pease Road, whatever they had up there, and they had to remove that shed for some reason. And, you know, I got a call from my contact at Public Works, said, you got a bunch of trail stuff here that I didn't know about. And so, you know, I inherited a box of some bolts and nails and whatnot, and some, you know, reflective vests, and some old tools that were in not such great condition. That, you know, I bring them along on our events, and people use them until they break, but nothing of the caliber of what we really need to do. So people bring their own equipment, and I feel bad when people are using their own, especially power equipment. You know, I've used my own chainsaw many times, and other people bring their own chainsaws out, and it's, you know, it's wear
Well,
and
there's
tear.
probably less liability if they're using their own chainsaw. No?
Yeah,
Okay.
most of the we typically don't have the volunteers use the power equipment. Couple
That's
of them
probably
do, because we
Yeah.
know they have experience, and it's their own, but we don't let people use.
Yeah, we're not
you know.
having the Girl Scouts, you know, do chainsaw work. you know.
And just partially answer your question, Sharon,
Yeah.
we're slated, Andy and I are slated to have a meeting with Adam coming up. We're waiting for Adam to tell us when he's free to have that meeting to figure out how to install, you know, if they'll be able to install the signs and what the process is and the approvals, then we have to, nobody
Okay.
knows all that
So
right
it's
now.
been helpful.
I just want to thank Mr. Danzig for all of his work in keeping the trails clean, and I'm wondering, would it be smart if he was added to the presentation for the jumping worms, and because I wasn't aware of
Absolutely.
the invasive species of the barberries, and I didn't know if this came about after Lyme disease, or when did this become a deterrent? And also I wanted to know, does it impact our deer population and our bear population? Is this a source of food for them?
No.
I just don't.
It would be great if the deer would eat it. I don't even know if goats will eat
But then
barberry.
they'd spread it again, right?
Yeah.
Barberry has thorns, right?
Yeah.
Is that
Yes.
barberry? Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably the
Barberries.
berries. Are there berries on?
Yeah, and so is multiflora, a huge amount of berries too, and some very hefty thorns.
So
Show you the scars from pulling out.
Bittersweet, they all had lots of
Okay.
All
names.
right, any other,
But that's a good idea, so Valerie,
no,
so when
that's-
we come up with the
absolutely.
time, maybe we'll give you a short, concise slot to just hit the highlights and tell people.
It's actually, not just a bad idea to have it, even a standalone presentation on invasives for the community members.
It happens once in a while. They
Yeah.
have them at the library every
Yeah,
once in a while.
I may have done one at the library a couple of years ago, I don't remember, but,
Especially as,
Maybe,
spring gets out, we
may-
get out
may-
there before.
But
I
if we-
wonder if it would, I just, an idea of just, instead of having it at the library and talk about invasive, I wonder if we had it out in the field on a nice day, and you could do a, half-hour walk, well, this is Barberry, this is.
yeah, you don't do half,
Wouldn't be
any
hard.
trail you go on, you would take 3 steps, and I can show you all
Yeah,
4 or 5
just
of them right
all of
there.
them,
Maybe you
and
can
maybe
bring
that,
samples
maybe
too.
that's a way to,
I'm sure they'll be out there on the trail.
a different,
No,
I
but
don't know.
if we did it.
Yeah, no,
But-
if we did it
but-
inside, I've done.
Yeah.
Okay.
The education has to be continuous, I guess, on this.
Right. From a conservation perspective, if the invasives are up here, if they're in the area, they're called invasive because they're not native and because of the way that they grow, and they take over from the native plants.
Right, they're degrading the whole environment.
Yeah.
That are
Mhm.
better habitats for
Right.
wildlife.
Wonderful.
So-
Thank you, Andy.
Okay.
Appreciate you coming, and the second, Valerie, thank you for all the work.
I have a thought on this, just one comment on the signs. I think the metal signs are great and adorable, but I do love the good wooden signs, so if there's
Yeah.
any way to keep them,
Yeah, I don't think the
And the land trust might have a
sense is,
budget that would be willing to do that, I don't know.
there's no sense of replacing the major signs.
oh, no, I know.
These are going in the, of what typically, for these access paths
Right,
that are
Yeah.
where it's hidden. So you can put a sign there and say, yeah, this is where you want to walk. And basically, it's sort of the flavors of the first
Understood.
one with an arrow. Walk this way, and that's the hiking trail. So they're, unless you're looking for it, you're probably gonna not even see the signs, because they're not gonna be major, large signs, they're pretty small.
And ideally, you'd have on either side of the sign, like you have on, what's the road that goes to Elderslie, you'll see a sign, 800, trail entrance 800 feet. You'll
Peck
see-
Hill Road.
Peck Hill Road,
Peck
thank you.
Hill.
Yeah.
So ideally, you'd want to have something like that, so to kind of alert people that, oh, there's a trailhead here, as opposed to just,
That
sign right
starts
of
to be
it.
getting to be lots of signage, which I always don't like so much, but I think it is,
Yeah.
I can
Yeah,
understand.
but it's
We wanna-
not.
We wanna try to
Yeah.
minimize it, but put it where it's gonna help people find the trail. So that's why these will, for the most part, be off the road. People are looking for them, they'll be able to spot it, but it's not gonna be
And
on
the
the
issue
main
is,
sight lines of the road.
yeah, one of the issues, if it's on a state road, like Rimmen
Yeah.
Road, that's a state,
That's, and the
Issue
state, the
and-
state's not high on you adding a lot of signage either, we've
so
talked
we have to
about.
negotiate with them on that, so.
Yeah.
There's always something.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay?
good.
Thank you.
We move on.
Good night.
Item number 8, just a couple items of interest. I don't have any update on 124 Seymour, not at all. And Andy has just,
It's still, I see it's still listed for sale.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it is, it's in, but it's in bankruptcy court, as I
Right.
mentioned last time.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I should repeat that update, but there was a filing for bankruptcy, so now it's a sort of a reset on the foreclosure sale, and it has to go through the bankruptcy proceeding,
Mm-hmm.
so that'll be another, I don't know what the time cycle is in that. Okay. And Andy just talked about the Tom's Trails group, so we'll, no need to go anything further on that. So on the budget expenditure item that's next, I previewed that at the beginning of the meeting, Andy.
I have one thing I'd like to add
Yeah.
to that. I'd like to add, I mean, I think what you're about to say is that you'd like to know if we'd like to use some of our funds to support this, and I personally think that's a great idea. But I'd like to use some of the funds to buy some daffodils from some beautification. I don't know if that's part of what would be appropriate or not.
Well, I am told that you need to spend money for things that are within the account category that they were budgeted for.
Okay, then maybe that's not
The
appropriate.
guidance I was given,
Okay.
and,
Unless you wanna transfer the funds to a different category.
and that's a process through the Board of Selectmen.
So what are the
Board of
categories?
Finance.
Well, right now, we have, besides staff support, we have some money in printing and binding, and that'll be for the,
Could we do
for those
signage?
on
Could
the
we
maps.
stretch that out to signage? Oh, you're gonna do that for maps, okay.
That's printing.
But we have to get that done within the next couple months.
Yes, yeah.
And it's needed.
I'm on my to-do list, which has been there honestly all this week, but it will get done tomorrow morning.
Tim,
I
while
gotta
you
call
just-
Joyce Printing.
While you're on that topic,
Yes.
on that printing,
Yeah,
is it possible to put the Trail Masters information on there too, so that if people are getting information on the trails, they've got the
That's a
Trail
great idea.
Masters email, in case there's any, see something, say something.
yeah, it is a good idea.
They're gonna have to be
I have.
Reset.
Yeah, I have to go back to Scrog on that, that's.
Maybe we
the
could
grim-
stamp them.
grimacing.
Maybe you could
Maybe
buy
we
a
could
stamp.
stamp it.
Oh, yeah, we can
or-
print out labels or
or
something.
Maybe then through the magic.
So where were you
of the
thinking
print.
about putting daffodils? Maybe we could put them around the signs and that would really highlight where the signs were too. Like that
That's an idea.
start of a trail. I'm serious, I think
No,
you,
I, just some, I think
So
town
the
could use a little more
the other-
festiveness.
mm-hmm.
More festivities.
The other categories are equipment, where the bulk of the money is.
And how much is our $1,000?
There's 900 there, and then there's 150 in programs and publicity. So that's if we were doing jumping worms and
Well, we
we
are doing
wanted to
jumping
buy, you know,
Refreshments.
something had a, yeah, maybe we can do that.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, I propose that if it's legitimate to do, I propose that we spend the majority of the equipment budget on creating those, creating those, using it for the trails. I think that's a great use.
Trail
of-
equipment, yeah.
So
And
Is that- is
I'd
that
like
a-
to encourage and maybe help Andy get it at, a wholesale price instead of a retail
So we're
price.
talking about some of the signs and then some of the equipment for the folks who are clearing the trails, cleaning the trails?
I was thinking mostly equipment was the clearing of trails, but is it also signage? I thought he might be getting that signage from the Public Works.
No, he's not gonna get it from Public Works, they
That
don't
would
have
be
a
for
budget.
next year's budget.
It would,
What do you-
so let's, Andy is ready to do, well, the thought, he didn't say it, but the thought is to do minimal signs by, you get a little discount from this site if you buy 3. So,
Start with 3.
we're gonna try 3.
How much are they?
And that's exactly what I'm gonna tell you now. The signs themselves are inexpensive. If you bought 3 of them, it would be between $75 and $111, depending on what kind of reflective material you put on it and protection.
Could we request that he has maybe just like a fixed budget that itemizes what he's looking for the next meeting? We can review it ahead of time and make him.
Yeah.
Well, it's 3 signs, that's, because I would like
Okay.
to try these out. I don't wanna go and get something that doesn't turn out to be any good. The posts are more expensive. 3 would cost $180. Now, I have to imagine you can go, one of the reasons to meet with Adam is to say, well, where do you get your posts? Because they use posts.
Yeah, I would
And they
think
may-
that
they may
even
able
for tools
they
that
may be
the
able to-
town would have,
Yeah.
could buy under state contracts.
Well,
where
right,
they
and the
have-
tools, the same thing. Adam can probably suggest where to
Well, why
buy
don't
them.
we have you and Andy work on that?
Yeah.
And talk to Adam and come back with
Yes.
a list of what is good and what
Yep.
Andy thinks he needs.
Okay,
But I think a majority of that budget, since it were,
yeah, so I,
could be spent on
you know,
that.
Yeah, and
the,
the other thing on the post is I think for some reason I'm guessing it's gotta go, it's
Dug in.
some type of foundation in there so that it doesn't blow away.
well, we'll ask Adam that, but I
You can
think,
dig them in.
I
mean,
think
if
you
don't need
can
a cement.
dig them and pound them in. Sometimes you put cement down there, but
And if
for,
it's
for
not an
regular
issue for him
posts,
to do it versus like Public Works has to do it based on.
I think we would want Public Works to do it.
To do it, okay.
That would be the intent, but that's part of this conversation with Adam.
Great.
You know, that's
Our
what
budget
we,
would go a lot further if the Trails group did the installation.
yeah, but.
If they were just
if-
given the
if-
signs.
If
No, no,
Adam's
no.
crew does it,
They know what they're doing.
if,
Yeah, they do know
if
what
they
they
don't
do.
contract it out, if Adam's crew does it, then there shouldn't be any incremental cost,
Right.
because there are sunk
I
costs.
don't want to sound like a smart aleck, but it's just digging a hole.
No, it's not. I mean, that's originally like what you think, right?
Yeah.
But they become kites and they grow legs and people, think they're funny to move around and, the
Turn
entrance to the
upside down.
trails now over here, the entrance to your driveway, and so. it's-
Yeah,
Believe it or not. And then on top of it, it may actually just be like a union requirement that the Public Works team does the work.
yeah, that's,
Besides,
I don't think so.
there's tools to help really dig it.
yeah,
if
they,
have.
they would have some tools. So,
Okay.
we're gonna figure it all out.
I'm sorry, Tim, one more question on
Yep.
this. That would be my last, I
No,
promise.
no problem.
Okay. So, Andy mentioned a couple of other groups that were also, like who he coordinates between.
Land Trust and the
Yeah.
Park Association, yes.
Yes. Are those other groups also contributing to the cost of purchasing this equipment, or is it?
No.
Okay,
So, the Town Trails Group was really created to bring together those three entities, those two entities plus the town.
sure.
Because those are the three entities that own the open space and through which trails pass in the town. And it was to coordinate their efforts and bring some continuity and standards to the efforts across. The Park Association takes care of the trails on their land. The Land
I don't
Trust.
think they have much invasives there. I think they've been dealing, I don't remember. Anyway, go
Yeah,
on.
the Land
There's
Trust,
plenty.
the Land Trust takes care of their property.
Uh-huh.
There are town-owned properties that the Land Trust has conservation easements on, that the Land Trust also stewards.
Okay,
And they have people responsible for both those types, where they have ownership and where they have conservation.
okay.
And so they will do work. So they're, in those properties, they are providing the resources and the tools to take care of those properties. So the work so far that Andy outlined the second Sunday has all been on town land.
Okay, thank you.
And the equipment will, now, will there be a time where the second Sunday group will go to a
No, that's
piece of
fine.
property that's conservation by
Yeah.
Land Trust? Yeah, maybe, but, that's,
For the
that's
most
in the
part,
spirit
that's-
of,
yeah.
in this, support of the whole town.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Tim, I had a question back to the budget. You said that in our budget right now, still this year, is the 900, approximately 900 for equipment and
Yep,
100 and something for
150,
program.
150 for programs and publicity.
Is there any money in the printing?
Yeah, we essentially haven't spent any money in those three categories. we spent monies in staff support, but in those three, we haven't because.
Because
we've
I
lost-
thought you said the total was 1,000, and that came up to
Well,
1,000 with
I-
nothing for
well,
printing.
here, let me explain that. I still intend to take our map we developed with the Greenway and have it put on poster board, for lack of a better term, and get a couple of those, so we have them for events. So that 400 we have there is gonna stay for now, because I think it's gonna be used in short order. It's not spent
I
right
don't
now.
think that's gonna cost $400, do you?
I'm, from talking to people in town, I've got a couple of different mentions of dollars, so I'm not sure. And I will
Oh,
be
yeah,
calling Tom,
absolutely, the green-
Joyce Printing tomorrow to find out.
Yeah.
But I'll keep that
Is
there.
that
Oh,
better
right,
than
you
Tyco?
love the topics.
Yes.
It's where the town does their
It's the
business
local,
and,
it's the local
Okay.
printer.
yeah, and it's good to do business
He does.
locally. Yeah.
Really
Okay.
does good work.
Yeah.
Great.
People.
I don't know.
And then, so that leaves $1,050 between those two other accounts.
So there is no money for reprinting the trail maps.
Well, the 200, excuse me, yeah, it's $400 in printing and binding as an account. We have
Right, but you said you were keeping that aside for those
For the maps.
posters.
Oh, for those maps? Oh,
I'm
For-
trying
through
to
that-
find out whether there is,
For-
because
for the small maps you're
we
talking.
need more of the
We-
trail
we-
maps printed
we need them now?
pretty quick. They go like hotcakes out of the library.
Well, then, let's get them printed and let's find out where it's, I don't know what they cost last time. Were you gonna make a query on that? You haven't? Okay.
Oh, I can.
If they need to be printed, let's start and do that. Who, is that just asking Tony to do that, I guess?
I think so.
Okay. I'll talk to her about it.
Sounds good. Can I adjourn this meeting?
I'd rather you
One
wouldn't.
more topic, sorry.
Yeah, well, I'd like to finish this one off, if you don't mind, Diane.
So we don't have just a question, we don't have, usually we have like topics for the next meeting on the agenda? Was that just inadvertently left off?
No, we don't.
Don't we usually
us-
talk
Other
about
business.
other business or something, or I don't know
We
what we
don't.
call it on the agenda?
We don't usually do that. We have a couple, we
I
have,
thought we did it, at least we did
we
it one
have
time.
the initiatives and we have the items of interest that are kind of just memory
Okay.
reminders for us, things we were, that are ongoing. But
All right.
we've never,
Yes,
we've
same
never
thing.
not
We've
talked.
gotta go.
Yeah, so, on the budget, I guess on the budget, I would hope we would do tonight is just say, okay, we got the 1,050, how much would we wanna allocate, to the tools for this trails group and for Andy?
I think,
And just see if we improve a certain amount, and then.
But
I think that's sort of like driving blind. I think it's better if he comes, he knows what he needs. He can just say, these are the things I need, this is the cost of all of it. and
Well,
then-
he actually has a list, he gave me a list of what things cost of each
And
equipment. but-
quantities and everything that he needs?
Well, there's more here than the money we have.
Sure,
He's gonna have to prioritize.
sure.
So I thought maybe an approach would be, say, yeah, we're willing to give you this much money, and then he can figure out how best to spend it.
Can
So,
we look for donations too from property owners that might be downsizing? A lot of people get rid of those
Yeah.
types of things.
Great idea.
Hey,
yeah.
As
Yeah.
long as they're new.
If he's writing that monthly newsletter, that'd be a great thing to
Well,
put in there.
why don't we put a note on there?
So, we know that, he knows he needs a bunch of stuff, he would have to prioritize. I was hoping we'd just say, we can spend up to this much money
And
in
that's
the
in
budget
addition
this year.
to the 3 signs and the posts and everything?
That'll more than take care of the signs.
No,
So
I'm
you're
saying
saying
those are all part of the same line.
Oh, it's
item.
all as part of the same line,
Okay,
yes.
yeah, so I request respectfully, based on the time and how important the topic is, I think if we just have like a recommendation from you that says, these are the 3 items, this is the cost of the signs and the posts, and this is my recommendation on the budget that we should allocate to the trail master for equipment, that would be
Okay.
very helpful, instead
Alright.
of just saying, let's
Then
throw a
we'll-
dart
we'll-
at the board.
We'll take that approach, we'll come back next meeting. and-
But I think
I
all
mean,
of it,
even if you can
Well,
ballpark it
I-
right now,
well-
it's fine.
Well, I don't wanna choose a priority for Andy,
Okay,
and that's why I was looking.
but I think
for
the general
money.
feeling is our
It's a
budget.
good thing.
It's a good thing,
Yeah.
it's useful, it will
Yeah.
help our land,
It's money well
Well,
spent.
it's money well spent. We just
Yeah.
wanna be a little bit more informed about what that priority is.
Which the items, I can get that from her, so we'll have to just do that next month.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So just in terms of the other topics we haven't discussed yet, can we just have that for a moment before we end?
Well, one
Oh.
is the Audubon, 2 is jumping worms.
Well,
Oh, for like
the
future meetings. Maybe just an update. I know you were working on requesting the approval for the recognition of the expanded greenway. Where does that stand?
I'm still waiting for the invitation from the Board of Selectmen to talk. I was supposed to, they had wanted to hear about the Greenway plan. It came up in one of their meetings, and.
oh, I thought all you had to do was submit, I guess.
Yeah, I thought that's what the process was that you were
Oh,
gonna
good
submit.
point.
Oh, I submitted it,
Oh, you submitted
the
it to the
Greenway
state
plan.
already?
yeah,
Did
To
you
the state,
submit it to
yeah.
the state already for,
not to the state,
Oh,
okay.
Why not?
because
I'm just gonna go to
there was a question raised at a Board of Selectmen meeting, and they had questions on it. And they were going to have me at a meeting, to address the questions. They
So I
haven't
watched
had me yet,
I watched
yeah.
that meeting too,
Yeah.
and when the topic came up, Jerry Weiner advised the Board of Selectmen that it was within our purview to do it. I
Yeah,
guess the
he wa-
term he
wa-
used,
He was a little tentative, but.
no, he was very specific. He said it was within our statutory
Yeah.
authority.
Yeah.
So that's pretty specific.
Yeah,
So
but
why don't we
at the
just
end
do
of that meeting, Jerry Shaw asked for clarification, do you want to invite, so that you can ask some questions to the Conservation Commission about this, and they said yes.
Well, I think you could do those 2 things in parallel. You could answer
I
their
could.
questions and you could,
Yeah,
you could proceed with what we voted and agreed to do. I mean, I think
Yes,
that's
and
the.
And I did bring this up at a meeting, a couple meetings ago, and said that I deferred it because I thought it was the right thing to do since the selectmen had questions.
Recall you said you deferred it because you wanted to give them the opportunity to be aware of it. I think, I don't, the exact term you used, but it wasn't like,
Yeah, it was deferred because of that reason, because I knew
honestly,
They
it's
had those
frustrating when
questions.
we have things we're supposed to have done and they don't get done and then we don't accomplish anything. That's very
Well,
frustrating.
I don't know that, I think Paul brings up a good point. Why can't we submit it to the state? And, because it doesn't seem like the Board of Selectmen, they have a lot of other things, and it might be months and months before you actually go before them.
at which point we'll have many more trails and our greenway will change again and
No, I thought it was the right thing to do with the Board of Selectmen, if they had questions, to give them the chance to ask the questions. I expect now that the budget is through, there'll be more room on the
They
agenda.
can ask questions, but it's, Jerry Weiner said it was within our statutory authority to do it, so,
To draft a Greenway plan, right,
yeah,
Submit a greenway plan.
to,
submit the
to-
Greenway plan.
to adopt the Greenway plan. And it says nothing about submitting it to the state.
You know,
So-
I think I sent to a few folks, the charges, right, for the conservation commissions. I'll circulate that to everybody else. It lays it out pretty clearly what
Yeah.
the role of the conservation
Mhm.
commission is for each.
I saw that,
Mhm.
yeah.
For the communities, yeah, and
Mhm.
it does,
Yeah.
you're right, it does talk about the greenway in there. Yeah, so, okay.
Okay.
Was
So,
Barbara's
we
got
did not get
120
to,
seconds before she.
we did not get to the 10 and 14 Merritt Avenue learnings, so we will
Could postpone that to the next
Postpone
meeting.
that, I sense it's.
But just, I mean,
It's late
Tim,
at
I
this
think
point.
So,
it's very
does
frustrating that
this
we
mean
haven't,
that we sit and wait until the Board of Selectmen
We're-
ask these questions of
Well,
Commission?
the only thing we're waiting on is to give the state the updated plan.
Well, that's the
There's
important
no-
thing.
there's no
They
in-
want-
that
they-
was an
Well,
important,
That was the-
important,
That's what
that
we
was what
want.
we voted
There-
to do.
We said we wanted to do that,
No, we
yes.
said to do it.
But there's
We
no,
voted to
there's-
do it, not that we wanted to.
Yes. And that's why I came back a couple meetings ago and told you I was holding off
But
because you
that's your
asked the
personal
question.
decision. Maybe
Yeah, I
we
don't
should
think-
just-
We didn't, there was no,
Okay, so maybe we should
No
vote on whether it's
objection then.
appropriate, well, to submit it now.
and what are we gonna get out of submitting it now as opposed to waiting and letting the Board of Selectmen bring forth the questions they have on it?
We can accomplish something that we've spent a tremendous amount of time.
What are we accomplishing? We've already adopted the plan.
But it's
The
not
state- the state
recognized,
has-
Codifying it with the state.
it's
right?
not recognized, it's not
just-
finished.
It's recording it with the state.
Right.
That we already have a greenway. There's no
Well, I
no
think this
effect.
should be a topic for next week, because we're over time, next month, but I
Okay.
think that we should come to some agreement about it, so that we, and maybe we'll get more information
Well,
from what you
hopefully it's a
say.
Sure,
moot
I'll
point
send that around.
and I end up on the
I
agenda.
mean, specifically, I read the meeting minutes, you know, that we were approving, and one of the specific things is we were gonna send it to the state to get approved. And we didn't do that.
So, Tim, can we put that on next, at the top of next meeting's
Sure.
agenda, so that we don't put it down at the end and not
So I
get to it?
watched the Board of Selectmen, there was one Board of Selectmen member that had questions on it. They didn't say we weren't supposed to do it, they didn't ask us not to do it or anything, they just said that they had questions and they wanted to have somebody from the Conservation Commission come and answer questions about the Greenway.
Yeah.
And, one of the Board of Selectmen members said that she didn't want to recognize that she even received it. Which I didn't quite understand that, since it was being televised, and it was being televised when it was handed to her. I just, we have to get things done. I mean, it's very frustrating with the Conservation Commission. It doesn't seem like we're, like, prioritizing things and then accomplishing things. And honestly, it's frustrating.
Okay. Noted.
Okay, so we'll make a decision on that next month? And maybe you'll have talked to them by then, and they'll have looked at this meeting and know that we wanna further it, and maybe they'll come to you.
Or we'll just request that we're on their next agenda to answer
Yeah.
any questions they have about it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that would be fine. If they want to answer, if they want to ask questions, let them ask questions, so we can answer the questions that they've asked.
Tim, can you request that of the Board of Selectmen for their next meeting? If they have time for us for 5 minutes?
I was intending to.
Will you,
Thank you.
Kathy, will you make note of that, so we remember it?
Maybe we could,
Deep
maybe we
details
could
on
even
it.
ask them what their questions are, so we could discuss what our response is to the questions. I don't know what their questions are.
Thank you.
It's like, well,
I
I
didn't
think
understand what the point was for us to come and answer questions about it. I didn't understand what sort of questions they had questions about, because it seemed pretty straightforward.
yeah, I think embedded in that meeting were the questions. And I think it's an opportunity to tell them, you know, what authorities we do have
Did you
over that.
watch the meeting?
I did, yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna say maybe
Yeah.
you can tell us the time
Yeah.
of the meeting,
Okay.
the time when that topic's discussed.
Oh, yeah.
It was a Board of Selectmen meeting within the last 8 weeks, so so it's one of the two, right? Was it?
They have four.
Right.
They have one every 2 weeks.
It's every 2 weeks, it's not every month, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so it's,
Can
I'll-
I move to adjourn the meeting? I've gotta go.
yes.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Don't we have a second on that?
Oh.
You lost
My
your-
night, my night.
Lost your
Sorry.
I'm also gonna check in on
And-
Earth Day for the
We are
committee
adjourned as of
for next month.
9:31.
Oh, that'd be